Okay, hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today at RG Podcast. I'm joined with a very special guest, Mr. and I hope I don't butcher this, Shiva Keshavan. Is that right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, all right, great. Then we're off to a good start. And from my understanding, you are a Native American luger. Is that right?
Yeah, the other kind of Indian. The ones that stayed at home.
The ones that Chris Columbus was actually looking for. So, okay. All right, but can you tell me where you're calling out of right now?
I'm in Italy right now, in Tuscany.
Italy.
Yes, with my family.
Well, be sure to have some wine for me tonight or something. But yeah, what time is
The right
it?
place.
I'm here in South Korea. And,
10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. on the Saturday morning over here.
okay,
Beautiful
all right.
day.
And so before we get started on the interview, we're going to be talking about your career in luge and the Olympics. But before we do that, I want to ask you some like friendly fire round questions of just some random stuff. So are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Favorite kind of curry?
Favorite kind of curry?
Yeah.
Sambar.
Samba? Okay. I assume you like curry. But okay, coffee or tea? I'm going to again go for tea. Right?
No, coffee for me. We
Okay,
grow
all
our
right.
coffee in India. We make some really good coffee.
I'm getting some coffee right here. Okay, most inspirational Indian, not Gandhi. Obviously, everyone's going to go for Gandhi.
Most inspirational Indian.
And not
Um,
she's only half.
sorry,
Kamala Harris, not Kamala Harris.
not Kamala Harris, not Gandhi. You're taking away all the prime options. Well, let's see. I think Swami Vivekananda.
Okay.
He is a social reformer who had a huge impact on and reforms on the Hindu culture, and
Okay.
big modernizing figure and philosopher in India.
All right. Cricket or baseball? I'm going to assume cricket, but you never know.
Well, because of a lack of other options, yes, cricket.
Okay. Greatest Indian band in the world ever of all time.
Greatest Indian band.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many, but Ravi Shankar and all his crew is made a lot of music. Anushka Shankar and various orchestras.
Okay. All right. And this is the most important question. Like, I know you got like a little thing going on with your hair. So what hair products are you using for shampoo or conditioner or whatever else?
No hair products. No
No,
hair
wow.
products. Just let them be.
Okay. Okay. So before we get started, any chance you've ever seen a Slumdog Millionaire? Probably sure.
Well, I've seen parts of it, but not a big movie, so I've not really seen the full movie. No.
All right. Well,
But
I won't
know
give
the
away.
story, and I know about the characters and everything. Yes.
Okay. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there's a part where the guy is the main guy. He's being interrogated by a police officer, and
Mm-hmm.
he mentions like a quote by Gandhi, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of him," and the guy gets so mad and he just like slaps him. So, all right. Before we get started, I read that you have a title, fastest man in not India, in Asia. Is that right?
Yes, that's still correct.
Okay, wow, that's great. And can you tell me real quick just give me like about a 2-minute introduction about where you're from in India and what sport you participated and kind of like what's been your career in that?
Absolutely. So I was born in the Himalayas, in the Indian Himalayas, at 2,500 meters altitude, a small village called Vashisht. It's in the Kulu Valley, which is called the Valley of the Gods. It's
Wow.
a valley where most of the founding fathers of the Indian culture originate. So it has a lot of history, mysticism, and of course high mountains, which is how I got into winter sports, and luge, which we'll probably get into soon enough.
And I think I read you participated in 6 Olympics. Is that right?
At six Olympics as an athlete, yes.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, wow. So many questions to ask you. And just real quick, if I were to describe luge to someone who's never seen it, I would say it's like a bobsledding, like on acid, pretty much, like on crack cocaine, because you're going down by yourself. It's like you get really fast. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, well, I don't really have the terms of reference, but it sounds about right. It's extremely fast paced. Yeah, things come at you, and you have to react very, so it's definitely for an outsider, it would look like, really, really high adrenaline game. But from an athlete's perspective, we have to be calm in that situation as well. So there are nuances to it that the general public won't realize.
Okay, so what I said was cocaine because people usually take cocaine and they get like really hyper. So that's, I'll tell you this. I've seen a lot of sports that I would like to participate in, but I'm telling you, I have no interest in luge because that seems like I seem like I could like literally like break my arm or something. I was watching some of the crashes in preparing for this. Actually, even one for you. You got like a really nasty cut. It was like I'll just write. It was about like that size on your arm.
Yeah,
oh, it's still there.
There's a big cut there. It's disappearing. I don't know if you can see it a little bit, but it's disappearing. It's been a few years, but it's such a high speed sport. But the athletes, you got to be really relaxed. You can't be tense. You have to be relaxed so that you can negotiate the curves, absorb the bumps, and be ready to react at the right time. If you are athletes actually have to be a lot more patient and composed, because if you're stiff, your sled will move around more, it'll vibrate more, you'll not be able to control it so easily, and you'll be slower, bottom line.
I really want to ask you about that, right? So we'll jump in right into the first question, which is, first of all, why would you choose luge? You mentioned a bit about maybe being up in the mountains, and what drew you to luge?
Well, let's say, first of all, I was always a very sporty person, very active. I loved physical activity. I loved competition. So I was in all kinds of sports as a kid. Then, of course, due to my surroundings, I got into winter sports. I was doing skiing, I was doing sledging, I was doing anything we can do off the mountain, building igloos. I don't know if that'll be the next sport, but luge is not a sport that you really get into by choice, since it's so limited, the possibilities, and so difficult to even try it. There has to be a certain amount of circumstance, destiny, however you would like to call it. So I was, to make a long story short, I was a normal kid in the mountains doing doing what all the kids do, and I got this incredible opportunity as I was invited by a talent scout, invited to a talent scout camp from an ex-world champion, this Austrian Gunther Lemmer, and he spotted my talent, and he was my first intro into this. He gave me my first intro into the sport, taught me the tricks of the trade, and then got me into this international development program that helped people from countries like India, which doesn't have a big winter sports tradition, to get into the sport and start off that way. And then, of course, when I realized that I was good enough to actually make it to a world level, World Cups, and of course the Olympic Games, that was something that it was a field that I really wanted to be in and compete against the best in the world and figure out where my place is, figure out, of course, it's about something about self-realization, but also, for my country, for my area, to know that, we are no less, or we are at least as good as, everybody else. And, there's no reason why we should be behind. And another outcome of that I'd like to see is the area develop into a winter sports destination, because, there's so much potential over there, which is still, by the way, completely unutilized.
Wow, that's interesting. Actually, I do want to ask you one thing. God. Okay, so yeah, I did say it seems like a bit of a difficulty because you were talking a little bit about the vibrations, but how much, like, are you actively, while you're doing a luge, trying to slow yourself down? Because even though you got to go fast, it seems like if you go too fast, then you're not going to really be able to have the proper time to react. Is that true or not?
Well, the thing about luge is that we don't have a key component that most vehicles have, which is a brake.
Right.
It's impossible to physically pull the brakes. So for luge, the mentality is, you have to get down, you cannot really slow down. So might as well do it in the best possible way so you don't get hurt. And that is also the fastest way, usually. There's sometimes a little difference between the route and the faster route. But, since most of the, considerations for safety are out the window already, and once you started, there's no way to get off the track halfway down. You have to reach the bottom. So might as well do it well. And so you kind of unlock a lot of the constraints that people have, that, okay, should I take it easy? How should I approach this? No, luge is 100% from the moment, you leave the handles to the finish, you're all in.
Yeah. So is there something that you're grabbing onto that allows you to turn, or is it just merely you positioning your body?
Okay, so we're lying on the sleds on our back, and here's where people who have no idea about luge should go and watch a video or look at a picture. We're lying on our back. We are holding on to these handles, which are connected to bridges, which are connected to both the runners we have on the sled. So with your handles, you're able to make some minor corrections to your course, but the bulk of the steering is actually done with your legs, with your feet, which are resting on the runners, on the kufans. And by pushing left and right with the feet, we're able to give the larger direction. And then the rest of the body we use to complement, so we roll our body left and right to make sure that the sled eases into the corners, and also that helps in complementing the steering. So it's all together, and you're doing it all the time down the track, and you have to anticipate or be in the moment, because it's where the most difficult part is to get the timing right. Because if you miss the steering by a few milliseconds, you're missing it by meters. So that is the biggest challenge, I think, of the sport.
So I remember, I'm sure you've seen Cool Runnings, right? I'm almost positive you have, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a training scene where John Candy is he's explaining the corners and such. And do you kind of like use that to visualize where you're going to need to make certain adjustments, or how many times do you actually get to go down the track? Like, do you get to memorize the actual track?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, visualization is an amazing thing, and we use it in luge because it's not so easy to recreate the conditions physically so often, right? But it can be used by anybody, because in your mind you can recreate any situation and you can go through it, and you can slow it down and you can speed it up, and you can try to figure out do it again, go in reverse. So the visualization is a very important part of luge training, also because once you have an idea, you think about it and you practice it in your mind enough times until it sinks in. and it becomes almost instinctual when you're at the track, because when you're at the track, you don't have the time to, stop, go through your notes, think about, what you're doing before. So if you're doing it enough times, it becomes second nature. And that is, also one of the key things in luge. But it's also an amazing tool that anyone can use, no matter your sport or your profession, to visualize for a big moment. It just helps you feel like you've done it before, and you're more confident, you're more prepared.
I do a lot of like meditation and like visualization. And one of the things that the people are always saying on there is that your mind is unable to distinguish something that's actually happening and something that you're like visualizing.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps you to get the emotions behind like being successful or overcoming some obstacle that you have in life. So I found that to be really, really, really useful in my own life. But I will say this,
and I have an interesting story about this, because the first time I won the Asian Championships, I was unable to figure out a certain curve, a certain portion of the track, which became a huge wall for me, mentally. And every time I would get there, I would mess it up somehow. I was doing really well before, really well after, but that point it became a huge obstacle. And I was visualizing the night before the race, trying desperately to figure out how to get past this. And I fell asleep visualizing this. And I woke up the next morning just knowing what to do. I knew exactly what I had to do. I had this, light bulb moment in my sleep. And I must have gone over it again and again. And next morning I said, okay, I'm going to trust this. I have nothing else to lose because nothing else has been working. And voila.
I thought you were going to say I fell asleep while doing the luge. I was like, wow, that's got to be dangerous. But that's an amazing story. That is an absolutely amazing story. I do want to go on to the next question, but are the Olympics essentially fair? And I do want to say one thing about this. Well, a couple of things. First of all, it seems like in one sense it really can't be fair because you're dealing with economic disparity. So obviously a country like America just has a lot more money to put into a program. And then companies like Russia or China, they really strongly finance and push a lot of resources into this so that they could like demonstrate to the world that we're superior, right? So you have these two. You have the economic disparity, and then you have the climate. Like Jamaica, them having a bobsled team seemed ridiculous for the fact that Jamaica. So you have those two, and it seems like it can't really possibly be fair. What are your thoughts on that? Seeing that as an athlete?
Yeah, well, I think this is a really amazing question, and it has a lot of depth to it that we can talk about, and it's an analogy to life as well. Many people expect that you go into a competition, everything has to be equal, all right? Mm-hmm. But we're not equal in life either, all right? Each of us has our unique backgrounds, our unique circumstance, our unique advantages and disadvantages to do towards any task, right? And I think it's all about making the best of what you have and able to compete. And that's what I love with the Olympics. It's that it's a melting pot of athletes from all over the world. Everyone comes from completely different backgrounds, resources, experiences, beliefs. And we all try to make the best of what we carry with us in this field. And we learn from each other. We learn from, some of the good and bad and mistakes of others as well. So it's if you so that it also depends upon the attitude. If you get disheartened thinking that I don't have what the others have, then you're missing out on a lot. However, to answer your question more directly, it's it's very difficult, or it's impossible for something like this to be completely equal or fair. In that sense. So what the organizers try to put a set of rules in place that everybody has to abide by, to make things a little more equitable. and also especially the movement in sports. There's an organization called the World Anti-Doping Organization, WADA, which makes sure that people are not trying to get an undue advantages from substance use,
Yeah.
right? That can be performance enhancing. And there also there's a big debate, where do you draw the line and things like that. But all these are the measures that are currently in place. In luge, we have another huge obstacle to equality of sport because the equipment plays a huge role, and many people from smaller countries will never be able to have the access to that level of equipment. And I think this is a thing that the international federation or the governing bodies of the sport have to pay really careful attention of, because essentially it is a race in which equipment is the determining factor, no matter everything else being equal.
Wow.
So how do you level the playing field in that sense?
Right.
I think is a direction
Right.
which the federation should be going, and making sure that it is at least a little bit fair.
Yeah, it would make sense if everybody had to use the same exact standard sled, for example. That would make the most sense. I do want to say this, that even in the realm of your own country, let's say America, for example, and you take hockey. Well, any chance you've ever heard of Malcolm Gladwell? He has a book called Outliers.
Yes, I have.
So he has a book, Outliers, and I believe it's that book specifically because he's talking about what makes people successful, and he was showing that in hockey, because they do like the sports year starting from like January to like December, that like the people who are born like in January, February, and March, when they go to compete for like the tryouts, they're just naturally going to be bigger than the guys who are, they're 5, 6, 7 months older than. So what he shows in there, I mean, and it's ridiculously high number. And as you go on, like the months just get lower and lower and lower, like in December. And he says these people aren't necessarily better, but because they go in with this physical advantage, he says they might get spotted by like as you were talking about, a scout, and they might be given some extra attention or maybe extra training or something like that. And then what turns out is they wind up having, in the end, just quite a big advantage. I do want to say this. Real quick. You had mentioned drugs. Does luge, is it to your advantage if you were like big and bulky, or would you want to be thin? Like I can't really make sense of that. Like, is it an advantage?
Well, in a theoretical world, I guess if you are really thin and aerodynamic, but at the same time really, really heavy, you would be fast, because the gravity, you need your weight for gravity, and you need the aerodynamics to cut through the air, right? But usually if you're heavy or bulky, and you're a bigger obstacle as well for the airflow. So it depends. In general terms, it's good to be heavy. So most of the pads are above 90 kilos, but there are those who are reaching even 115 kilos. And those people will definitely have an advantage, right? So you want to get as heavy as you can, but at the same time, you need to be agile. You need to, be sensitive to the pressures around. There you go. That's when I was trying to be 95 kilos right there.
Wow.
And so yeah, weight definitely helps, but it's about agility and balance as well. So each person will have their own sweet spot, let's say, and then there's minor adjustments that if you're too light, the rules allow you to add a little bit of extra weight until you reach a certain standard. Yes.
Really? Wow. That's interesting. You know what? I do want to say,
like a common friend of ours, Lucas, who I had the pleasure of competing against and coaching as well. He used to wear 13 kilos all the time on him. So everything he did, he had this 13 kilo weight vest, and he made it look easy, but I can guarantee it's not. Yes.
Hey, Lucas is a friend I have from Bakersfield, and I met him, and he has like this giant six pack, man. This thing is ridiculous. And I said, hey, man, I'm going to have to take you back to Asia with me because my ironing board is broken. So I just want to use your chest. You know? That's an expression. I'm not, they said if someone has a flat chest, they say like you could iron something on it. Anyways, very stupid joke. Don't laugh. You don't need to laugh at my joke. It was a very childish joke. But I do want to say one thing. So my daughter was born in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, which she participated in, and actually, I went down there for the regular Olympics, but then also for the. She actually the first time I went down, she wasn't born yet, but then she was born like in the middle of the Olympics. So the second time I went down was during the Paralympics, and so I went down there, and man, seeing all the flags there, it just does something to you. You just feel like such a pride to being a human, not American, not Asian, not anything. It's just like I'm proud to be a human in this moment that we can set aside our differences for these couple of weeks, and just like for this month, every couple of years, we can come together. Everybody wants to win. You would be a liar to say you don't want to go in there and come home with something, but there was just such good sportsmanship. Like even when the games were done, you could see the athletes, and they were happy for each other, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better time for my daughter to be born than because my wife is Korean, so. But do you think there's a good balance there between competition and then just trying to be good sports?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, first of all, congratulations. I know you have a daughter, and that's an amazing story. For her to have, for her to have been born in such a, let's say, situation, and then you can use this inspiration for the lessons that you're gonna pass on.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but the craziest story is I was divorced from my wife for 5 years, and then I went back to America, and I came back to South Korea, and on the night I got back, she got pregnant, and then she was born right at the Olympics. So yeah, it's an amazing story. But definitely that's unity and goodwill is what I work for in my life and my life's work. But all right, please keep going.
Then I think that's amazing. That's an amazing part of the Olympics, and I think within us as human beings, all of us yearn for this kind of a situation in which people from all over the world are there. They're celebrating their differences, but you're competing against each other loyally, and with honor, while respecting your opponents, and you're making each other better. And
right.
This is the key to to this event, why it is so successful. And in order for this to work, the participants, the athletes, need to give their best, because the Olympics, it says it's not about winning, it's about giving your best. And then there's a whole range of circumstances that have to fall into place to crown you the winner on that day. But if you are giving your best, you are winning it for yourself on that day, and that puts the premise to create a platform in which all of us are performing, all of us are pouring everything we have into it, and that creates the show, that creates the Olympic Games, So this is the most important thing, the joy found in effort and in the pursuit of excellence. And that's what gives you happiness, satisfaction, which lasts a lot longer than, the 5 minutes of fame or glory that you might have for a medal. Right. Because each medal might be a moment, but people have years and decades of hard work which is put into it. And if you want to be happy during that whole period, then you need to find a reason why you're doing this, and you need to be satisfied with yourself, let's say.
Speaking of which, how many medals do you have total?
I've never counted them. But the important ones are the 4 golds at the Asian Championship.
Yeah, I was going to say, does your wife let you keep them in a box, or do you have them in a room, or do you have your own private area and you can keep everything?
Yeah, mine are spread a little bit all over the world because I have we've been traveling, and we have a few homes, a few places where where we go and stay. So there are a few medals here, a few medals there, and there's a lot of them in storage. Not just medals, equipment, I save all the things that I've all my equipment and all the small things that I came across. I save it for the future generations. So I've been, I have quite a collection.
Yeah, just husband to husband. Don't wherever you move, don't keep it all in one location because that's going to piss your wife off. She's going to make you put it in storage or salad or something like that. I can imagine.
Yeah,
Um,
you know it.
I do want to get on to the next question, number three. What kind of national pride does it come on to you to represent a country or to wear its flag? I can imagine there would be very few things as honorable than to do that, than to represent your country. But what kind of feeling does that give you? And if you could just speak for one moment, I'm going to take myself off screen because my battery is going to die right now. So just go ahead and speak for like a minute or two on that. I really appreciate it. Okay.
All right. All right. So yeah, nationalism and the feeling of national pride. Uh, representing your country is the biggest honor because the country is the summary of everything about you. You're the whole origin. You're representing something which is a lot bigger than yourself. You're representing a community. You're representing the place you live. And there's a lot of hopes and expectations tying you in with your countrymen and women, and the kind of support, outpouring of love and support you get from complete strangers, just because you come from the same place, you're on the same team. That's amazing. And I had this I had the honor of being the only person to represent India in the 1998 Olympic Games, which was in Japan. So I was 16 years old, and I just qualified for my first Olympics, which was also kind of a world record. And it hadn't really hit me until I walked in to the Olympic opening ceremony stadium in Nagano, Japan, and I had the flag in my hands, that I felt that I'm not alone. I've got so much weight behind me that I can be proud and just keep my head high and walk in. I remember initially I was between two huge teams. I think it was Great Britain in front of me, Italy behind me. There were hundreds, maybe 300 athletes each, and here was India in the middle, just with the flag. But it didn't matter to me because I knew that was the first time I realized that what I'm doing is not just for myself. This is much bigger, and how I have to carry myself, how I have to perform will have repercussions for many other people, and that is the amazing honor, responsibility. This is just an amazing feeling to do that. It's difficult to explain, but yeah, you're doing it for something much bigger than yourself.
Yeah, a couple of things. What is that? What is that welcome back to India like after you've just beat everyone in Asia? Like, what's that experience like?
Huh. Well, I didn't really expect anything, because when you're training, you're not really watching the TV. You don't have so much time to spend on social media. You don't know what people are thinking, talking. And normally you're training and competing in a remote area somewhere, on the other side of the world. And it's only after, once the news starts spreading, that you start to get these messages, and you start to get overwhelmed by support from people that the only bond link you share is that you have your common origins. You come from the same place. And when I came back to India, I seriously didn't expect anything, because luge is, at least it was, an unknown sport in India before I came onto the scene a little bit. But we had such an amazing welcome. We had people come to the airport with drums and flowers and carry me in a procession. And then when I got back to my to my home village, to my hometown. We had a big procession on the main street, and everybody came out, and I was completely overwhelmed. I had no idea that there would be this kind of outpouring of love and this kind of a connection with people, and then that gave me so much more energy to carry on and to continue.
Wow.
Because we've I mean, it was not for me, at least, from athletes from countries like India that are practicing sport. It's not really, you don't really have financial considerations. It's not a career, so to speak. But nothing can beat the kind of love and support you receive once you achieve something.
Yeah, you know what? In 2013, I was living in Greece with my girlfriend. I think like in December, they in December they went up to because it was like right at the base of Mount Olympus, right? And so I guess they go to the top of Mount Olympus and they start the torch with like a fire from the sun, and then they come running it down. And so the town that she lived in is called Katerini. And I was there when they were when the person was running by, so I got to see that. That was quite an amazing feat to witness that firsthand. But another thing, do you think that it promotes nationalism in any way? And maybe even if you could comment if you think that nationalism, to an extent, like is actually a good thing, or national pride.
Well, I mean. Taking pride in your history, in your origins, there's nothing wrong in that. You have to accept it. You know who you are only once you know where you're coming from, right? I guess that's Bob Marley or someone who said that. And so this is important, and to have a connection with the people, your land, your history. This is extremely important, and it's a positive thing. What is, of course, unfortunate is that sometimes this turns into aggression, and you think that just because, I mean, in many your circumstances are all and you don't really have the right to think or to judge or to comment on other people's circumstances, right? So as long as it is a personal thing that is positive, it is empowering you, it is making you feel connected to a larger group of people who share this with you, that is something positive. But just like nationalism, you can even have globalism. You can feel connected to the world, and that is, I think, the thing that we should be working towards. That's we're a global world now. Many years ago, there used to be city states because it used to take weeks to get from one city state to the next, and your loyalties were tied to your city states. Now we're talking about nation states. And I'm sure this evolution is going to continue until we realize that we are all one race, and we have really slight differences amongst each other. We're really all the same when you dig deep.
Yeah, you know what? So I'm Mexican. Lucas, I was joking the other day. I said he was Mexican too. He's like, no, I'm from Argentina, and I'm like, okay, you speak Spanish, yeah. I was joking with him. But growing up, I really hated the fact that I was Mexican, that my skin was darker, that I wasn't white. And it wasn't until like I came to Asia and I was trying to fit into Asian culture, and I realized, man, I don't really fit into this culture as well. Even if I did learn and understand everything, I would still be seen as an outsider. And so living in Asia for 10 years, it really helped me to start accepting and loving myself for my ancestry, my roots. So my daughter's half Mexican and half Korean, but I don't want her to have a feeling that she's like 50% and she's 50%. It's like, no, you are 100% Korean and you are 100% American. There's no like, you know what I mean? There's like, for me, I want her to feel completely embraced inside of both sides of her ancestry, and so I do want her to have pride in that sense. Like, I'm very proud to be an American, maybe for totally different reasons than a lot of other Americans. Like, I'm not nationalistic to the point where I'm going to put anyone else down, but I definitely love and appreciate my country, even though I don't live there right now. So anyway,
I think that's a beautiful sentiment, and I completely agree with that. I have mixed origins as well. My father is Indian, my mother's Italian,
right,
and I can be
right,
100% Indian, and I can
yeah.
be 100% Italian, and you can do that. You can and you don't have to choose. In fact, you can be both. So
You can
that's a
take
message
the
maybe for a lot of the mixed race people out there, which we're more and more around the world now.
you take the curry and then you mix it into the spaghetti. So there you go, right there.
That's a new curry to try.
Yeah, or you can take the naan and then make like a pizza on the top of the naan. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, here we go.
Murder.
Here we go. The next question is. Well, actually, before we go on to the next one, I was wondering really quick if we could just talk about religion for a quick 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I didn't even. Sorry, my battery came out again. 1 second, because it's gonna die. I need. I'm sorry, that was a rookie move because it actually got unplugged over there. So okay, so you told me that your family is Hindu. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Obviously, your name is Shiva, so that's Indian god, correct?
Yes.
And you told me though you're not practicing yourself. So do you do you believe in like spirituality or just just living a good life or?
Well, that's a deep question.
Mhm.
Let's see. Culture, tradition, religion, it's something you're born with. Okay, so it's so I was, of course, in touch. I have been in touch with the culture, tradition, spirituality, religion in Hinduism because I was born in Vashisht. Vashisht is, by the way, a guru of Ram and Lakshman, who are reincarnations of one of the principal deities in Hinduism. The principal deities being Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right?
Vishnu.
So Brahma, to simplify it, Brahma the creator, Shiva the destroyer, and Vishnu the preserver. Okay, so
Destroyer.
Hindu, yeah. So the Hinduism is an incredible religion because there's a philosophy, and it started as a way of life, not as a religion. It was kind of coined as a religion once we had invaders into India. They identified, and it became Hinduism. Before it was a dharma. It was a way of life. And within this dharma, within Hinduism, there are many ways of life that make up the whole of the society, right? In India we have it had degenerated into things like caste system, which became social evils. But the beauty is that it recognizes different backgrounds and different points of view, and we have hundreds of thousands of gods in the Hindu religion now. And of course, you don't have the time capacity to even know them all. So they're you can pray to, or you can revere what you are most interested in either at the moment or what you identify with, right? So of course, as part of my upbringing and my name as well, shows that my father is a devotee of Shiva. And Shiva has a unique, let's say, a unique place in the pantheon of Indian gods. We're talking about the theory of chaos and destruction, and it's completely different aspects than other aspects in Hinduism. So yeah, I think I've always been interested in history, in religion. I studied human sciences and how it affects people. But I also think there is a deeply personal thing, and believe that there's nothing right or wrong. It's all things that have been created and stories that have been told by humans. Okay, and so there has never been, you know, the God which comes down and directly speaks or writes or tells you exactly what to do. It is what we have. It's what we have deduced, and through our
Yeah.
intellect and then through our history. And yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So my family is Christian. Like I was born into minister's home, but I didn't want anything to do with Jesus Christ or the church or the Bible for many years, and
Mm-hmm.
but I was fascinated, Shiva. I was fascinated beyond words why people would go through such lengths to create these stories. Like for example, I was in Thailand and I saw this play called The Birth of Ganesha with these like giant. I mean, they were like giant puppets, and they told the whole story about Ganesha. I mean, it's fascinating. And actually, I even got a Hindu tattoo down here. If you can see that right there. So I got all the world religions tattooed from my on my back, on my legs, on my feet. I was just fascinated with why people feel a need to like create such elaborate stories to try to understand things about themselves or their origins or maybe their future.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating, and I am a Christian now, but those kind of thoughts still run in my mind. Like, I think it says something like really beautiful about humanity and about our desire to have meaning in the universe. Whether we're talking about a frog or a rock or a tree or wind, that we look for something deeper to worship or to find meaning other than just the physical universe. I think it's fascinating. But anyway, thank you for that. I do.
Absolutely, and I also think that when you have to transmit an idea, okay, an ideology, a principle, sometimes it's not enough to have a writing or a statue or so you create a story which creates a character which has life, which breathes, which can talk, which has feelings, which you can identify with, and then through the story you can transmit a lot of values, a lot of lessons, and that's why you have these incredibly deep stories in all religions, who speak about maybe a day in the life of a saint or the god or something, and that is supposed to tell us something. Some people would interpret literally, some people would interpret metaphorically, but I think that the key thing is that you should preserve your own direct communication with your spirit, with your God, with your reason to be, right? And there is no buddy who can say that, look, no, you have to pass through me if you want to speak to your God. This is a personal experience, and everybody and this is also a vulnerability, because this is the most
Right.
the deepest part of you, of your belief, of who you are. So don't let others tell you what to be. You can make up your mind on your own. Of course, you always listen to reason and advice, and which is why I think it's beautiful. You have so many religions now. You can learn so many new things. So I'm always interested in speaking about and listening to other cultures, other uses, and why, and to figure out why this is.
Any chance you saw Squid Game from South Korea?
No.
Anyway,
I'm one of those who are like, what is this? It's all over the place, but I didn't have the time to see it. No.
yeah. Well, I just thought maybe you're South Korea, so maybe you'd be interested in maybe check it out later. But one of the guys from that movie, the show, we interviewed him on the show, and he's Hindu, but he's American. So it was a really interesting conversation. I think I learned a lot, even about being a Christian, from talking to him. There were a lot of things I learned, and I have Muslim friends here that I learned something from. Not to say they're 100% wrong in everything that they believe in, but that I can definitely take truths or lessons from them. So I do want to go on to the next, getting back to luge here, but what is the most challenging or difficult part of training?
Well, the most challenging or difficult part, I don't know if there's something particular in that way. But I guess in luge, it's we have limited amount of venues around the world.
Right, right.
So the biggest challenge probably for me was, since I was coming from such a remote place, just to be there, to get to some of these venues. Halfway around the world, you need
Mhm.
time, you need money, you need
Right.
resources for equipment.
Gotcha.
So I think the most challenging part of the sport was the accessibility. You know, it's extremely limited, and once you are there, you need to work really hard to remain there if you don't have that kind of a tradition culture set up in your home country. So for me, that would be it. Everything else, of course, is difficult at first, but you learn it, right? That's the whole process of doing luge. But just the access, just to be able, anybody should be able to say, look, I want to try luge today, and you should know where you can go. Whereas ours is a sport in which anyone can say, okay, I want to try luge, and then you can spend 1 year looking for a track and another two trying to make them accept you to go down. Um, so yeah, I'd like to see this movement, the sport, to be more involving, more inclusive, because
Right.
it's an experience. It's an experience that I think it enriches anybody.
Right. One of the things I was thinking about is that rather than individual countries sponsoring Olympics every year, because that model is really bad. There's something really, really wrong about that model. One, because they wind up building a lot of facilities that they have to tear down later on. You know, um, you know what I'm talking about? They either tear them down or they just totally like abandon them, which is it's bad for the environment. One, but then also it's like obviously some countries are never ever ever going to be able to host an Olympics. Because just to lobby to try to get the Olympics winds up costing hundreds of millions of dollars, and some of it just totally wasted. And then some countries will spend literally tens and tens of billions of dollars hosting it, and so it puts like a lot of financial burden on that country. So what I was thinking was that maybe rather than one individual country doing it, like a continent could do it. For example, North America, and divide some of the games between different countries for some different events, and then also with that way you could have like facilities that are built and that people can train at year round, because that seems like like every country cannot build 100% of everything that you need. That's just a reality. So if you were dividing it like that rather than just one individual country, it seems like you could provide more opportunities. So maybe like Europe hosting 1 year and Asia hosting another year. It's just a thought I was thinking about. But
No, I think it's a very interesting thought, and it's very wise. Um so there's a lot going on in this. I mean, of course, the Olympics is a huge cost for many countries who do not have any of the infrastructure,
right,
and
right.
uh, and so many countries that host the Olympics use a big event like this as the spark, or as the reason, as the stepping stone to start with big infrastructure projects, which is not really only for the Olympics, but it is for the country, which will last for decades, if not centuries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Winter sports is I mean, this applies to winter sports even more, because um, in the terms of the development of a nation, winter sports comes once you've already reached a certain level of development in which you can invest in things
Right,
like
right.
this. But
Mm-hmm.
but they do make sense to have kind of big development and infrastructure projects that are made respecting the environment, or understanding some of the mistakes that have been committed in the past. You know, for
Right, right.
example, the way mountain ecosystems were, completely damaged to make big winter sports infrastructure projects is one thing. But now we know that we can plan for it, and we can plan it in a
Yeah.
sustainable way. and
Right.
and that is the opportunity for developing countries.
Right.
Whereas developed countries, it's easy for developed countries to say that, hey, let's not have Olympic Games in anywhere else in the world. Let's have it only here in Germany, just to take for an example, because we already have the infrastructure, so it doesn't cost. Well, I think that's a very
Right.
narrow-minded thinking, because the whole world needs to be part of this story of sports, and many Westerners, let's say, or Europeans, North Americans, they feel entitled that such competitions should be mainly held over there, because it's a waste to hold it anywhere else. We have to travel so far, and they don't have a culture over there for these sports, and
Mhm.
so it is an argument, but I think it is a selfish and narrow-minded argument. I think what
Mm.
you were saying makes a lot more sense, to share. Like, if you have to have a big event, you share it with the neighborhood, you share it with the in you spread it across a continent, a group of countries, so that the development works do come in, but they are not so big to cripple the economy of that country. So
Right.
that's a great way, I think, and I hope to see games that are hosted, I don't know by a continent, but at least by multiple countries in the future.
Then I gotta send you my blog that I wrote about it. That the other thing too is I think is creating a spring and fall Olympics. So that way every year there's one world competition, because sometimes you got to wait you got to wait 2.5 entire years before the next competition.
Yeah.
And not only that, but there's a lot of sports that are just not included. For example, I think one I would love to see is like how do you call it, MMA. I really like MMA, but there's a lot of other sports that are starting to get more developed. A lot more people are getting interested in different kinds of sports. So I think if you had it one every year, where like it's just something that we need. Having one every 2 years is a bit of an outdated model, especially the fact that we're approaching, we're around 7 billion people, and as their population gets, bigger and bigger, it seems like it's just too much competition to try to get it in every 2 years. And because I will say this too, seeing some of the people on the Olympics, I used to have a hard time understanding why the people would be crying when they fell down or something. But I definitely came to understand why people do cry, because one, you've invested a lot of time and even money. A lot of Olympians have to self-finance their own training and equipment, so they have to take out loans. I know there's this. Are you familiar with Kim Yuna in South Korea? She's like the
Uh,
top figure skater.
yes, 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 absolutely.
She had to take out a bunch of loans to do that. And, I mean, luckily she was able to win some gold medals. But if you've taken out a bunch of loans and then you like totally, you know,
Yeah.
fail, it's like I could understand why someone would be crying. I totally got that with talking to some Olympians down here
Yeah.
and understanding the kind of commitment you have to do
Mhm.
to actually do this. So anyway, I get that. I do want to say, I do want to ask you another question and say, is luge the most dangerous winter sport, or maybe sport in general? Would you say that?
Well, it's a tough question, because it's difficult to compare luge with baseball, for example. But I'm sure there are a lot more baseball injuries than luge injuries. You know,
Hmm.
because in luge, that it's dangerous, and there are safety mechanisms in play to avoid certain kind of injuries. All right. So, but it has the potential. Definitely has the potential to be very dangerous, because you're going very fast, and if you have a mishap, if you have a crash, um, even the tracks are designed in such a way so that you don't have any direct obstacle. So if you're hitting something, you're not hitting it at 90 degrees, you're grazing it, right? So we have more burn injuries, more lighter injuries, but there
Oh,
definitely is the potential for for serious injury, and we've seen it,
Right.
in the past. But in the 24 years that I was an international level athlete, we have had only one fatal injury. I mean, one is too much for sure, but
Right.
compare that to other sports, and you will see that people die playing football, people die running, people die doing anything. So it's it's more about understanding the sports, taking the precautions. Once you do have that, then it makes sense. Don't just jump into it blindly. If I go down the loose track without a helmet, without a suit, then yeah, it's a recipe for a quick death. But
Hey, I hope they give you a cup. That's all I got to say, man. Because you injure that going 90 miles, there ain't no way you're having kids after that, man. I'll tell you that. Right?
I know. Yeah, that's true. That's
Uh,
true. But
but
it's protected. Let's say you have protection where you need it.
okay, so the guy you're referencing, his name was he's from Georgia, and his name was Nodar. I know I'm going to butcher this one. Kumar Itashvili.
Yeah,
So,
Kumari Tashvili. Yeah.
oh, I got it right. Wow. But okay, a couple of things I want to say. One, I told you why I would never do luge, but I would do luge 100 times before I did skeleton one time because skeleton seems way more dangerous because your head is going down first. At least if you're laying back, it seems like you could easily, like if you know you're gonna really eat it, like you could roll off to the side. That seems a lot harder if you have your arms by your side going face first down. I mean, I literally I can't even imagine. You would have to pay me a ridiculous amount of money to even think about doing skeleton,
Yeah,
and I still.
I agree with you. You need a lot of courage to start on a sport like skeleton. Taking things head first, literally. uh, However, it's also a sled that's not as maneuverable as the luge. Um, so on one hand, there's less adjustments that you can do. You can simply move your body. But on the other hand, the sled is designed in such a way um, to keep you a lot safer. Okay, it's almost impossible to overturn a skeleton sled, for example. So yeah, while you need a lot of courage, it's a sport that probably requires the most courage to start. The counterintuitive thing is that it has a much faster learning curve than luge. Luge takes a lot more time and skill to just make it to the top of the track, whereas
Mhm.
skeleton it's much faster. It's much easier to start with skeleton as a sport. But of course, once you take any sport to an elite level, the difficulty probably in all sports is similar because you're looking for that marginal advantage,
Right.
over people who have already taken everything to the limit. So yeah, in terms of competition at a certain level, all sports are pretty intense.
Yeah, and you know what? Luge is one of the only sports I've seen where they measure in thousands rather than hundreds. I'm
Yes.
I'm sure there's other sports that do that, but that's that shows how razor thin margins we're dealing with here. But
Yeah.
it's it,
Just imagine that after two heats on regular World Cup, so after four heats of the Olympic Games, each heat is about 1.5 kilometers, more than 1.5 kilometers. So you're talking about 3 to 6 kilometers, and the difference between athletes is measured into a thousandth of a second. So
I
after
can't believe
six
it.
kilometers, you're a blink apart. So that's how close
Wow.
this is. So when you're looking at, okay, this guy's one, this guy's second, this guy's third, well, they're all champions for me because they've all done it and it's practically the same. Anybody, it could have been anybody's day on that day.
It is the biggest potential for hazard is as you're taking these corners. If you're going too fast, you could potentially just tip your sled over.
I think the biggest, yeah, you can tip your sled over. Um, However, we have something called the centrifugal force, the G force, okay, which keeps you glued to the wall even
Really?
when you're past 90. Okay, it's something
Wow.
like, you see these people, these motorcycles that go, and that, I don't know what it's called. The
It's been around the. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. The same thing that makes the carousel when it goes round and round. You swing outwards, but you feel more of a connection with your base because you're being pushed towards your seat. So luge is the
Oh.
same. Luge, you're on the wall, you're past 90, but you're pushed outwards. So you're pushed on the track, and you feel this weight on yourself, which is the G-force, which is the
Know that.
multiplication of your body weight. So
I
if you
didn't.
are So basically, it's if you're facing 5 Gs, then your body weight is multiplied by 5. So if
Whoa.
I'm 100 kilos, I have 500 kilos on me if I'm at 5 Gs, right?
Wow.
And we go 6, 7. You can reach higher than that if you make a mistake. So that is a huge challenge to deal with these G4, especially because it comes at you like a punch. Because so fast,
Wow.
you got G-force and then release, G-force and then release. So you're feeling all these things on your body, and this is our primary method of understanding where we are on the track, feeling our way down the track, and reacting. So this is the main steering parameter, not our
Yeah.
eyesight. Okay, so that's why luge athletes need to feel the track when they go down.
So the only thing I could think about to really make luge a lot safer, it seems like, would be to have um, like a dome over the top, like a see-through dome, because it seems like the most dangerous thing that could possibly happen to you is if you just get thrown up in the air and like you hit a beam. Because I think that's how the guy died. But that seems like
Yeah.
I know that seems a little bit like it seems a little impractical if you have that much track. But I mean, you're talking about that could potentially, even if that guy didn't die, if you would have hit his head on one of those beams, even with a helmet, that could do like literally life ending, and not even just kill you, just to completely like sever your spinal cord or put you into a coma forever. It seems like that.
Well, we have had some kind of injuries of that sort. The worst thing that can happen is for the athlete to fly out of the track.
Right, right,
Okay,
right.
and that is the track is designed to try to keep the athlete within the track no matter what happens. So you have these overhangs. So worst comes to worst, you hit the overhang and it pushes you straight back in the track where you don't have direct obstacles. When you fly out of the track, you only have obstacles. And when you're flying at 120, 150 kilometers an hour, whatever obstacle you hit is going to do damage, right? So the most important thing that in terms of safety in the tracks is that they make sure that the athlete remains in the track at all times. The second probably most dangerous thing is when you get separated with your sled.
Oh,
At that point, you can hit the sled can hit you.
oh,
That becomes the what do you say, the X factor, something that's not planned for in the track. So these two are probably the most dangerous things. Other things like, for example, G-force. You do have injuries. You have spinal compression injuries because of the G-force and things like that. But they're longer term things. Let's put it that way.
oh my God! I had no idea about the complexity in that. So actually, this leads right into the last question. But before I get to this last question, I have one other quick thing to ask you. It's not on here. But have you ever thought about donating a few inches of your hair to like a kid, like a cancer kid without like hair?
I actually have never thought of that, and I would be extremely happy to do something like that at any time.
Consider it. Or if you don't want to go to that extreme length, you could just do like 2 inches. And I actually it grows just fine right here on the side. It's just the middle part right here that I need like 2 inches. And so yeah, you just send me a couple, just shave it off, clip it, send it in the mail, and we'll be set. So that's
Absolutely, there's a lot more than 2 inches over here. So if it can help anybody, I'll be most
that's a
happy to do
total
so.
joke. Okay,
Yeah,
so the
thanks.
last no, that's a total joke there. I lost my hair at like 25 years old, so I've gotten used to it. But you have some beautiful hair. I will say that. Amazing. You don't use any products in it. But okay, if you had to restart your Olympic career in another sport, which one would it be and why?
That's tough.
And
That's a
don't
really
say
tough question.
bobsledding. Don't say bobsledding because that's cheating.
Yeah, well, actually, what I was thinking is that if I could choose again, I would probably choose a summer sport because I've experienced and I've traveled to all the coldest places in the world. And if there was a second career opportunity, I'd like to travel to all the beaches and all the warmest places in the world. So maybe surfing. I'd love surfing or rowing or yeah. I mean that would be a important consideration.
Surfing and that's a great call. But is surfing an actual Olympic sport?
It is a new Olympic sport. Yes.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Just one really quick story. In America, I heard some like Australian guy, and he was trying to get directions from somewhere, and his car broke down. So I love helping foreigners whenever I can because my mom was really into international things, and she had, I think I told you this, she had a total obsession with India. And so she was totally in love with that country, but this guy, he because I gave him a ride, he was like really appreciative. I helped him and his fiance because I just wanted to help a foreigner. He gave me a book about him doing like an international surf touring and competing like in all these different countries. So there's like, yeah, you're right. They go down like South Africa. They go up to like California, Australia. So it's about his experience in that. It was such a funny and crazy book. But do you have any last thoughts?
Well, what can I say? First of all, thank you for this opportunity. First, it was a great chat.
You.
And for all the people who are listening out there, there's luge is something unique that you can do. There's so many unique things in the world, so don't be caught up in the mainstream trying to do what the next person has already done. Get in touch with what you love and find a way to take it to the extreme. To be the best at it, and this kind of a journey will come with a lot of satisfaction and definitely a lot of unique stories. So good luck out there to everybody who has dreams and who's brave enough to pursue them.
And all your social media links are in the description box here, so you can check more of him and that amazing hair. I hope they're able to fit it all in that helmet because you don't want that getting in, go flying in your eyes, man. That could be a little dangerous. But no, really, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think, well, you got the title of the fastest man in Asia. So, and there's a lot of people in Asia. If you're like the fastest man in Antarctica or like Australia, where there's like a few people, you know what I mean? There's like half the world population lives in Asia, so that's a lot of people to be faster than. So, no, I
I know.
appreciate you. I appreciate you laughing at some of my stupid jokes, especially the Native American one. You seem to find that funny. But no, I really want to thank you for your time. And just one quick thing before we go is if have you worked with or are you interested in any nonprofits that are based in India that we can make a donation to? Because just for the sake of my mother alone, I would want to make that donation. But we always make like donations to nonprofits, but they're like based in America or in Korea. So in this one, I'd like to make a donation for something in India. Do you have any that you know?
Well, I mean, I work with a lot of sports nonprofits. I've worked with other nonprofits as well. India is the country which has probably the most NGOs than any country in the world.
Really?
And there's definitely a lot of people that need help, that need support, because it's a country where there's a big divide between rich and poor. Oftentimes, many people don't have access to basic amenities. So and I know you do a a lot of work helping out people from all over the world. So I'll be very happy to put you in touch with some of the organizations that I work with. That'll be a great thing.
Yeah, I'll put a link down there if anyone's interested in making a donation. So yeah, again, I want to say thank you for your time. Check us out at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, just about everywhere you can find someone, you can find us. We're looking to get into TikTok right now. I think that might be a good way to get a positive message of people sitting down and having conversations about life. Where speaking of the speed of luge, about gluing you down, like we're being flung across the universe on this planet, on this rock, at speeds that would blow your mind away. And in a sense, like in a similar way, we're stuck on this planet and we can't get off of it, at least for now. And so as we're like here, as we're together on this planet, let's just take the time to get to know each other, to respect differences of views, of opinions, of religion, culture, gender. That's the mission of RG Podcast: respect, humility, empathy. We don't always have to agree, but if we just take those three principles, respecting the other person, having humility to admit you don't know everything, and that there's plenty of things you can learn from someone who you might totally disagree with, and then empathy, to really see other people in the universe as other yous out there who are walking around, who have hopes, ambitions, dreams that sometimes aren't realized, and we're all going through our own difficulties, and so let's just try to love and to help each other. With that being said, if you can stick around for one more minute after this, here's the outro, and thanks again.
Awesome.